All right, thank you for staying with us. The conversation at this time, it's about an icon, and of course, his goodwill, his life so far, his contribution to the society, and of course, his view about what is happening right now. And I'm talking about our guest. He's an household name. Of course, he's a celebrated broadcast administrator, a politician of the progressive ideological band, and a diplomat as well. And he was the Nigerian ambassador to the Philippines. He's here with us live and direct in the studio. His Excellency Yemi Farounbi. Thank you and good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's nice being here.
Thank you very much for being here as well. And let me say that this is a special 80th birthday interview for this broadcast icon. He turns 80, on October 1st. Congratulations in advance, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Let me congratulate you too, because as a Nigerian, that's your birthday too.
Yeah.
Very much. Thank
yeah. Very well. That quite an iconic day and date for an iconic man. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, sir, before we dwell on your birthday and life journey, an out-cycle election was just held in Edo, and some have commended the INEC for a job well done. Some have said maybe they didn't do well. In fact, a particular Governor Amadu Fintiri of Adamawa, has said maybe this is one of the worst conducted election in the history of the nation. Of course, Asue Godalo, the candidate of the PDP, said maybe this might be the end of democracy with what happened. But then some have said, INEC, well done to you as well. What would be your assessment of what went down at the weekend in Edo State?
Let's look at it this way. There are obviously inadequacies. There are instances where the material didn't get there on time. In the polling unit of Igodalu, the INEC people didn't start at the 10th edge. I thought that was even bad logistics. They knew that was a candidate, and they were not already there. That was the materials to start. There are a few things like that. But you always have that with anything that is a human organized event. The security was okay. There was rain that stopped voting early in some places, but it turned out picked up. We didn't have instances of beavers not walking, at least not too many of them. I think if you study the politics before the election, it was predictable that what happened would happen.
How do you mean, sir?
It was predictable that the result would be what it is, not because there would have been a manipulation, but because there were political miscalculations. And sometimes politicians find it difficult to accept that they have made miscalculations. You have two candidates. The government that is sponsoring the candidate is not indigenous to PDP. It's not part of the PDP structure from the beginning. It came from APC and was grafted to PDP. He and Shuaibu went back. That meant part of whatever he brought from APC to graft onto PDP didn't exactly stay with him. They went with Shuaibu. The APC candidate was very, 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 very close to Tony Anele, who was the Lord of PDP and the Lord of Edo State. And he was in PDP too. So he took some of PDP to APC to meet whatever Oshiomhole had there. And don't forget he's senator for that senatorial district of Anede. So it could be taken that he will capture that one. So all they had was to work on the other two. Second is that Obaseki himself was a bureaucrat that became a politician, that became a governor. He's also bringing another bureaucrat. You can imagine what the indigenous politicians would think. So there were miscalculations. If the original candidate that won the primary conducted by the governor of Imo, if he was the one who had been presented, would have lost. The moment they brought that senator, I knew that the calculation was different. So what will I say? I think INEC did an average job. And to say that that will mark the end of democracy is to say that a lot of us don't know what democracy is. Election is just one of the 8 pillars of democracy. The first thing is that you must have a good executive, you must have a credible opposition, you must have a judiciary that is independent and bold, you must have a legislative that is counterbalancing, you must have a press that is free, objective, and impartial. These are elements of democracy. Election is just one of them. But we stick to think that once you have election, that means you have democracy. Germany in 1933 had election that brought Hitler. Italy in 1934 had an election that brought Mussolini. Were they Democrats? So election is just one of the pillars. So to not say because an election is not what you expect, that means the end of democracy, it means that you yourself don't understand what democracy is. And it's part of the problem of this country. We think that election is all that is democracy. So we say we have democracy. You have to look at, do you have a credible opposition in Nigeria? An alternative viewpoint? An alternative government in waiting? Do you have a legislation that is counterbalancing in the context of what Montesquieu said? There be separation of power. The whole essence of a legislature is to put a check on the possible excesses. You have that. You have a judiciary that is bold. Of course, you have a press that is performing what Section 22 of the Constitution says. So it hurts that when I have an intelligent man saying that because an election has not been okay, therefore that's the end of democracy. Have you ever had indeed an true democracy? We have a civilian regime that we are trying to democratize. Election is not all. I think Anna did what he used to do. They are never perfect, and and in the circumstances of Nigeria, they cannot be perfect. The political parties are not perfect. The political parties lack internal democracy. The political parties lack the willingness to even do an assessment of themselves, to know where they can and where they cannot. And that is why every election everybody must go to court. Nobody ever accepts that he has lost because they don't do an internal assessment of themselves, their own strength, their own weaknesses, the threats, the opportunities available to them. Do they take advantage of it?
Right.
All right, Your Excellency, well spoken. But for this Edo election, we learned that there was reduction in violence. In fact, there were no issues of violence at all as regards to, violence in the different wards and polling units, but there is widespread vote buying, which actually a lot of reporters reported, and in a way, people are saying that this will further continue to mar our electoral process, vote buying? How do we curb this?
Stop it?
Yes.
Difficult to stop. Why is there vote buy? It's because there are people willing to sell. There must be a buyer and there must be a seller. Why are people willing to sell their vote? Because there's a disconnect between the electorate and the government. The government has not been delivering. They've not been giving them freedom of expression. They've not been giving them freedom of worship. They've not been giving them freedom from fear. They've not been giving them freedom from want. The people are hungry. They're hungry. They are thirsty. They are homeless. They are jobless. They are unemployed. They are joyless. They are voiceless. They are helpless. And they don't see the government solving all of these problems. The only time they see these people in power is during election. So it's what they get. That's what they get for 4 years. That is why. That's why there are buyers. And why are there, that's why they are sellers. Why are there buyers? They themselves know they won't do well. They know they are not acceptable to the people, either side. I'm not talking of one side now. Either side, they are not acceptable to the people. They know they will not come back. They know the election is just a plebiscite. In under 4 years, they will come back. They will see them. So, if you are acceptable, you won't seek to buy because the people will love you. When politicians used to be acceptable, the people contributed money to politicians. I've been in this game for a long time. I know we used to donate money for OHIOLEI, popular as it was. We used to contribute to the party. We used to donate bicycles, motorbikes, and Volkswagen buses. But what do you get today? People go to politicians to get money because they know they are not going to get service. They're not going to get delivery. They're not going to get infrastructural development. They're not going to get employment. They're not going to get a fulfillment of the promises that are being made. They know that the promises are just vague, just to capture vote. So for that reason, if we want to stop it, then government must begin to deliver. It must begin to deliver on its promises. It must realize that the welfare of the people is number one. The security of lives of the people is number two. When you do this, the people will voluntarily support you. They will not ask for your money. So that is the reason. But when there is so much hunger in the street, then it will be like years ago in Ekiti. Bako Sebe. Election time is a time some people will eat rice. Because they will bring the rice, they bring the gari, they bring the money to make the stew. They don't see them for another 4 years. If we want to see it, then government must begin to perform. Government must begin to deliver on its promises. Government must begin to realize that man is the center of democracy. It is government of the people, isn't it? Yes. For the people, by the people. People is the center. When the people become the center of a democratic performance and governance, then you will find that nobody will buy. Nobody will be willing to sell. I think we are a long way from it.
All right, Your Excellency. I would want to ask you if the people should just hope that one day we are going to, the leaders will deliver, or they demand this leadership from our leaders, or they just wait and hope that one day we are going to have a leader that will deliver good governance to them? Or is there a way they can demand good leadership from their leaders?
If they wait and hope that one leader will come one day, then you are in the realm of statistical probabilities and so on. And the probability will be very low. But they can demand for it. They must start by not asking these people for money. Our electoral process has become too expensive. Now let's take this Edo situation.
Right.
Look at the Labour Party. The Labour Party spent huge money on media campaign, which is as should be in a civilized society.
Yeah.
You should use the media to reach the people, to tell them what you want to do, to explain to them your manifesto, your mandate, so that they can make an informed decision. But what the other people do, they will spend the money to buy votes, to buy all the things they buy. They buy security, they buy electoral, they buy all of that. That's what you spend money for. So if Nigerians want good leadership and good governance, Nigerians themselves must no longer demand for money to vote.
Sir, if I may brought in, one would say the politicians made them that way. They intentionally, weaponize the poverty so that they will always have them crawl out to come and beg, and they will be helpless. Because, yeah, there are buyers, there are sellers, but then the buyers know that the sellers have no choice. They are poor, especially with what is going on.
Have a choice.
How, sir?
The fact that we are all hungry does not mean I will steal. You see, we have various characters.
Yeah.
There are people who are hungry and steal. There are people who will be hungry and still not steal. They have a choice. That French poet said, he said, even a man in chains have a right, have a choice. One old record, I heard it many, many, many years ago, he said, we live our life by the choices we make, and we die by the choices we make. We on our own make that choice. The fact that they weaponize poverty does not mean we must do that. If, for example, you teach them a lesson, you see, I wish we media and Nigeria go and study how the Asian tigers develop. There was poverty, there was weaponization of pauperization. Okay? But the people decided we are going to teach these politicians lesson. You have to be in power to have lots of money, because it's not free money. It's not the money they work for. Nobody spends that kind of money if you labored for it. Okay? But so long as we let them believe that they have so much pauperized us, we have no choice other than to do what they've done. Yes, I know Stalin tried to prove that one time. But I have seen countries where people revolted. I don't mean they go to the streets. They use their ballot to show that we will not take it.
So you are saying Nigerians are the enablers of this bad leadership?
I'm telling you, we are the enablers. I was in UPS. You cannot go to Awolowo's house and expect food. And expect that he will give you money. They will ask you, where's your membership card? They want to see whether you'll be paying your 2 shillings every month. But when the military came and we started the hierarchy of both SDP, NRC, and so on, then the thing became monetized. So we now go to politicians' house to collect money. We never did that. We never did that with Azikwe. Never did it with Sadauna. There was some poverty then, maybe not this massive. So Nigerians must first make a decision. We will not sell. Keep your money. If you do well, we'll vote for you. If you don't do well, we will deal with you in election. I mean, you saw what happened in UK. Succession of conservative government didn't do well. They had about 4 prime ministers. They didn't do well. And the people punished them. Landslide, they brought in Labour. That's how it should be. And we must seek to grow to that way. That's the first thing. The second thing is even political recruitment. The way the parties present candidates. Are they presenting the best? Sometimes the electorate has no choice. And that's why they sometimes take money. They look at one is 6, the other is half a dozen. What's the difference? None. It doesn't matter who wins out of them. None of them is going to perform well. So it doesn't matter. It's just like tossing a coin. So you take money from both and you look at the one who has paid the highest money. Because both major parties, the two major parties, were buying for as much as 15,000 for a voter. And you say, how is it possible? Nigerians were incredible when it comes to trying to break the law. These buyers were not within the precinct of the voting center. They're somewhere. They keep the money. You go there, there's a party agent there when you are voting. Somehow you must see that you are voted right. When you are voted right, he informs the treasurer. That man has voted right. The man goes to the treasurer to collect the money. Okay? So it's buy and say, it happened in Edo. Now, is it INEC I will blame for that? So you blame the political parties who have not presented the best. And why are they not presenting the best?
Yeah.
Because there's no democracy within the parties. You know, the man on the street has no choice. He's going to make a choice from what the parties bring. Sometimes the parties don't make the right calculation. If your interest is just to win, then you must look at the political terrain and say, this is banker show, I will win here for the following reason. This is banker failure, I will lose here. This one is 50-50. It is the 50-50, we should call the swing vote. That's why you spend all your time. Go and study the American campaign system. They know the swing state that can go either Democratic or Republican depending on the amount of effort you put into it. So you concentrate on that. But we don't do analysis because we just relying on our bank account.
And speaking about bank accounts, you said it's a matter and it's a choice made by the people. But then the political parties, especially in this election, the two lead. In fact, our reporter who spoke before you came in said the vote buying thing was brazenly done. It was publicly done.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you talked about people revolting by their choices, by the choices they make, not just by protest on the street. But does it bother you, or are you surprised? Were you caught aback that in spite of people shouting about the hardline policies of the government, the poverty rate, the hunger in the land, more than 33% of inflation, more than 40% of food inflation, and everybody is shouting, oh, things are hard, the APC still managed to garner more than 291,000 votes. Where do they get it from?
From people who sold and from people who didn't sell. You are surprised?
That's why I'm asking if actually you're surprised yourself.
Did you see this coming? You see, how many people registered in Edo State? How many people voted? Go and look at the percentage. Even 300,000 didn't bother to collect the voters' cards at all. That shows the disenchantment of the people. But in democracy is about majority of those who voted. It's not a percentage of those who registered. So, if you are desperate to win, I must look at this situation of Edo State. It's not a plebiscite on Tinubu. And it would be foolish of APC to think that it is a plebiscite on Tinubu. It's more of a plebiscite on Obaseki, Shuaib, OHIOLEI. These are the characters involved in this one. It was a life and death matter for OHIOLEI. First of all, his party has disrespected him. They cancelled the primary that produced his own candidate. And because they think he's irrelevant. And that's not the first time that they so disrespect him. So he has to win to reassert some level of eminence within the party. So he was desperate. Shuaib was desperate to prove to the PDP that, yeah, you mishandled me. I'm going to teach you a lesson. So he was desperate. It's that level of desperation. And Obaseki was desperate to say, I'm in charge. I will deliver. So you have three desperados spending money, desperate to win, not because of any performance or any commitment. It is power game. It is not what I can do. So they rolled out everything they could roll out for it. So if anybody thinks it has to do with the fact that the people are not happy, they are hungry, and that this is a reflection of the satisfaction of the people, it's not a correct satisfaction indeed. Right. We call this in statistics the use and abuse of statistics. It will be an abuse to think that this microcosm of Edo politics reflects the national trend. No, it doesn't even reflect the national trend in Edo State. It only reflects the political wrangling and struggles among three fighters.
So you're saying this is grossly local politics?
Absolutely.
Before we move on to other matters, let's look at the nation today. Many say President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's policies are unpopular and they are misdirected and not well thought out. For you, would you say that about this administration of President Bola Tinubu? And would you say that he has lost the bearing of leadership with what majority of people are saying?
Assessing him is a very straightforward matter. You look at what he has been, and you look at what he is, and you see a contradiction. You recall that in January 2012, he wrote a letter to President Jonathan then on why he should not withdraw the subsidy, because he correctly enumerated the consequences. They even went on the streets. He led people on the street to oppose it. But he came to power. That was the first thing he did. That's a contradiction. He was governor for 8 years. And he took the federal government of Obasanjo to Supreme Court about local government on how the federal government has no right to interfere with local government. But he got there, he went to court to oppose what he went to court for when he was governor. That's ideological contradiction. We knew him about restructuring. We knew him when there was a clamor for sovereign national conference to give this country a true federalism. But he says he's not interested in restructuring, he's interested in restructuring the economy, which reminded me what General Buhari said in 1983, February. He said, I'm not interested in returning power to the civilian. We have to restructure this economy before we do that. Have you ever seen a country where restructuring of economy is not a continuum? So what he's telling you is that I don't have time for political restructuring. That's one of the things we knew him for. So when you have ideological contradictions like that, it becomes difficult to even know what to assess him by. Even in terms of policies, we've seen policy somersaults. And I can give you instances.
Please.
Last year, I think October 1, that was the day he promised that those in level 1 to 6 would get 30,000 for 6 months. It was in national broadcast, 7 a.m. By 3 p.m., his chief of staff, that same day, another, oh, the thing is not meant for level 1 to 6 any longer. It is meant for everybody. Policy shift within a day. The education loan was passed by the National Assembly under Buhari. Buhari didn't sign it. President Tinubu got there and signed the bill into law. Then they discovered that the law was 40. They sent it back to National Assembly. Didn't he study before he signed it? Didn't he ask why didn't Buhari sign it? Buhari saw the contradictions, the enormous contradiction within it. So you have that. There was the cyber tax. It shifted again. There was the expatriate tax. It shifted again. I can go on like that. So there's ideological inconsistencies. The only thing that I know is a committed pool. There will be no subsidy. But we all know that there is subsidy. If we take the argument, I have never believed there's a subsidy in this country. I've always believed that there's a corrupt manipulation of the very opaque NNPC processes. He had always been consistent in marrying the bank rate and the black market rate in a country that hasn't sufficient dollar. But they tell us we are very poor. The bad governments have messed up things. Life is so difficult for us. Yeah, we buy a new plane. A 15-year-old plane to replace a 17-year-old plane. Yeah, we buy a beast, an armored Cadillac. Yeah, we buy jeeps for everybody in the National Assembly. But we are poor. So we don't see a correlation in the way they behave and what they tell us. So for me, it's difficult to say that he has been consistent. He has not been consistent. And then if you know all the promises, let's take food. Because that's a central matter now. People are hungry. Food. In his May 29th speech, when he took over, he promised that food will be affordable and accessible. And like you just said, inflation in food is about 44%. General inflation is about 34%. Bank rate is about 29%. So, food is not accessible. He promised that we'll have agricultural hub. We've not seen one. He promised that there'll be commodity bulk. We've not seen one. As a matter of fact, he promised that he's going to restructure the budgeting system in such a way that there'll be no inflation. But we know inflation is the highest since Abacha days. So there have been no correlation between the promises and what we are seeing. So those who criticize him are right.
Right.
All right, Ambassador Yemi Farounbi, would have loved to go on and on about Nigeria issues, but then we have to switch to your life journey. You'll be 80 in October 1, 2024, and I think it's a landmark age, if you permit me to say that. And, you know, looking at you, I can imagine where you were October 1, 1960. I mean, doing all those years with Nigeria, and now you are 80. I'd like to ask you, what does it feel like to be 80?
Nothing. Because age is calendar.
Mm.
Who you are is the state of your mind. You can remain a young person all your life. If you keep on learning, because that's very important. The day you start learning, you have become old. You have to be contemporary. You have to be contemporary in knowledge, because knowledge is changing, is shifting, is expanding. So really, I just see things passing, and I see misplaced opportunities. I see missed opportunities. I see dashed hopes. I see, how will I call it? When we became independent and Nigeria chose to use October 1, I was so happy. Oh, of all days, why would they choose my birthday?
Right.
You know? And I remember I was still in secondary school there, higher classes, and they gave us jollof rice and Mirinda and a medal to celebrate. We were so happy. Oh, Nigeria become independent. And at that time, the hope of everybody was that Nigeria would be the only star on the African firmament. Oh, at that time, we're ahead of Singapore, and that's the truth. We're ahead of Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Egypt. We're ahead of them. So we had hopes. Our Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, was called the golden voice of Africa. We had hopes. And we thought that Nigeria would be the symbol of democracy in Africa. We had hopes. We never thought we'd get to a state we will not be able to feed ourselves. We never thought about that. We never thought that there'd be a day will come when industries will be leaving Nigeria in large quantities to go to countries that we used to support. Can you imagine a multinational oil company leaving Nigeria to go to Angola that we supported to get independent? We've supported South Africa to drive away apartheid. We're there in Liberia. We're there in Sierra Leone, fighting for people to become independent so that they can take custody of their own destiny. We're there in Namibia, only to find that all those countries are ahead of us today. Korea, South Korea was much behind us. Today, Korea is number 14 in the world. Today, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. So, when I look at that, I give it the fact that I had the privilege of being educated. I'm an unhappy man. I have seen good times. As I look at you, beautiful, handsome people, I don't know whether you have ever seen a good time. I'm not sure your generation even knows what it means to say good. You have never seen good governance. You have never seen good education. I can tell you that as a university student, I went to the office of the Federal Minister of Education. I filled a form. I said I wanted to see him, and I saw him. Student, Federal Minister of Education. If I want to see the Federal Minister of Education now, I doubt if I will be able to see him even at 80. I was a university student. I wrote a letter to Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, who was Commander-in-Chief in the middle of a civil war. He replied and personally signed the letter. Now we talk to have no access to leaders. You even have no access to council chairmen. You have no access to councillors. You have no access to your honorable member, not to talk of governor, not to talk of president. Ordinary student. I wrote a head of state, he replied. So this has been changing. I look at the level of mental poverty that is being displayed by leadership. You love to hear Awolowo speak. You love to hear Bola Ige speak. You love to hear Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe speak. You love to hear Anthony Nahuru. Now they speak as if they didn't go to school. At least in our time, it was compulsory for us to do oral English. So the rudiment of spoken English may not be as good as yours. We had it. This kept on deteriorating.
Interesting one there. And there is at 80, definitely there is a lot to talk about, and time will not allow us to do that. But we won't conclude this interview today without talking about your forte broadcasting and journalism. For respectfully speaking now, broadcasting brought a Yemi Farounbi to the limelight, by the way. You are general manager of NTA, but we learned you read geography at UNN and then IFE. So how did you get into this space that now, showed you to the world?
Now, let me just say this. Broadcasting is a process. It's a profession that is based on a broadcasting process. It's like law. Law is a profession that is based on a legal process. It's not like medicine that has a content called medicine, a content called engineering. Broadcasting, journalism, history, geography, law is an approach to a process to studying things. So as you see today, you are talking to me, you're talking about history of one individual. Maybe after this, you'll be talking about nuclear reactors. You're still a broadcaster. You may be talking about Passion Parade. You're still a broadcaster. You may be talking about the meeting of the Obas or a cultural festival or the economy of Nigeria. So what I'm saying is that the content of broadcasting is everything universal. Any aspect of human life is a subject of broadcasting, but we have a process of dealing with it, whether it's economy, industry, labor, dance, or whatever. And that is why the subject matter you have studied may not be too significant. Kolade studied mathematics, became a DG. Badejo was the first Nigerian to become a DG, studied zoology. But that's not what he's going to do in broadcasting. You might have studied mass communication, which didn't exist really in our own time. There was journalism. There was Jackson College of Journalism in the University of Nigeria. I think that was the only one. Later on, Richard Aspinall started Mass Communication University of Lagos. Now, but why did I get there? I was not wanting to work in broadcasting. I wanted to travel out of Nigeria. I finished at IFE, top of my class, thankfully. And I got an admission and 3 scholarships. I had a Richard Mellon scholarship to go to University of British Columbia, Vancouver. I had a teaching assistant to go to University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I had a scholarship to go to London School of Economics. But I didn't have a passport. Because at that time, there was only one passport office in the whole of Nigeria. Now you have at least 2 passport offices in Osun. And it may take you 4 years or forever to get a passport. So you have to go to the passport office every week. And I was teaching in Akure. I know there was no way I would be able to go to Lagos so often. So I was looking for a job for in Lagos or Ibadan. So I saw an advertisement of WNTV, and I applied. And they sent me to go and do an aptitude test. You see, you didn't get into WNTV without passing a test. They have designed with WAEC specific tests to test the aptitude they needed in broadcasting.
With WAEC?
Yes, they did. So we went and did the test. Apparently I passed. So I was invited for an interview. Apparently I passed the interview, but I told them, I'm just looking for passports. So I will stay long. So it took them 3 months to decide to give me the job. I was told they were debating. This man will not stay. Why should we give him job? At the end, they said WNTV WNBS was committed to merit. And when they were advertising, they didn't ask for how long you will stay. So they gave me the job. Then I found that they knew me more than I knew myself. I thought I've been geology, I knew about metallurgy, paleontology, and all of those things. They knew through their aptitude that I could write stories, I could write scripts, I could do a few other things. So it was the aptitude test that gave me the job. And I got the job. Then I found out, oh, this is broadcasting. This is very interesting. You can mold society. You can change society. You can develop society. You can educate society. So I got excited.
And that was it?
And I've been there since then.
Yeah. Talking about the job, because we'll be running up this segment very soon. Of course, you can't do this kind of job and not cut troubles at some point. We learned you got into the bad books of former president or head of state Shagari at some point.
Yes, we did.
You are transferred from Ibadan to Akure to
Absolutely.
Maiduguri.
Yeah.
What did you do?
No, they said I was being too objective. They thought they were the party in power, and therefore we must dance to their tune. And NTV Ibadan, which I managed, was reputed to be the most objective. They did a countrywide survey, and we came #1 for having the best new bulletins in terms of objectivity and impartiality. So they didn't like that. And I say this, and it's conceptual. This station, any private station, any federal station, any state government station, you are using frequency. That frequency is called a spectrum. It's this atmosphere. It belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to a government. So if a government sets up a station like they did with the NTA, they are using the spectrum that belongs to all Nigerians. So you cannot force that station only to report what suits your party. And they said I wasn't doing that, so they transferred me. They are transferring me about. It's part of the risk of the job at that time. I know NTV, but it was not for that. I have problem with Jembewa. I have problem with Port Harcourt. Because there are certain things you don't do. You don't lie on a station. If you lie, your credibility is destroyed forever. You can't restore it. People don't mind what you do in your drama or in your musical, but they mind what you do in your news. Because when they hear something, they will say, Rafe said it. And then Rafe goes back in 100 to and say, sorry, what we say hasn't happened. It will have destroyed credibility.
Right. Your Excellency, we have to run, but if you can do this in 1 minute, please. Let's look at the broadcast space today, the proliferation of media outfits, or the deregulation of the industry in 1993 that gave birth to the proliferation of media outfits. Do you consider it a blessing or a curse?
It remains a blessing. We haven't gotten there. Yes, we have plurality, but we haven't had the diversity. We have so many stations sounding alike. They're like Chinese, looking like one another. But ultimately, we're going to get to specialization in terms of content. We're going to get there.
So this is still just a process.
Pardon?
This is a process. It's not a destination.
It's not. Yeah, it's not a destination. We just had privatization. We're excited by it. Everybody's having this station, but the NBC is not helping matter too, because they just given the licenses in an opaque manner. But station must be able to specialize.
Mm.
They must be known for something. In US, where you have any station, there are radio stations that only do blues music, blues. Those who do only sports, those who do only Greek, and so on and so forth. But the problem we have is that the number of stations is not being related to the economy of the coverage.
Mm.
They're only just looking at the population. Oh, Ocean State, maybe in Osogbo now must be having about 10 or thereabout. Yeah, it's okay for the population, but is it okay for the economy? Is it okay for an economy that has no industrial base? Because these private stations have to survive on advertisement.
Obviously, yeah.
We are not like US. There are stations that survive only on grants. Oh, this is an agricultural station. And they will rely on grants. And they'll be able to do that. So we will get there.
All right.
So I think we have opened the door rightly. And we will get there.
Yeah, we will.
And one thing I can say, in quality, the staff are better than what we used to be. They're more educated, they're more exposed, they're more well-read. In terms of technology, the technology is much better. The production process is much better. Two deficits. Not enough professional training. Because they don't have the money for it. When you are looking for money to pay salary, you cannot send people to BBC training school or Radio Netherlands and things like that. And two, in some radio stations, there's no professional discipline.
You talk about radio. How about TV? Or
Same.
print?
Same. Here you are. You have a script. I see it. I see. And then you are reacting. Of course, you have follow-up questions.
Yeah.
But there are stations where they don't do script at all. They don't know that it's part of the broadcasting process, that you will have done a research on me, and you will have done you have a script that will guide you. Otherwise, the program will not achieve any purpose.
Yeah. You know, my colleague Evelyn said, and she's not just the person saying it. Guys are whispering, almost whispering to say we must round it up. But then, if I may squeeze this one, the fourth estate of the realm, we have a constitutional duty, you know, to hold people in power to be accountable.
Yes,
The
Section
Nigerian
22.
media, do you think we are doing enough in that constitutional duty?
We're trying. Because if you've been all over Africa, you will give Nigeria a busa.
Right.
That's the truth. We can do better. We need money for investigation. It's very expensive to do in-depth analysis, to do investigation reporting. Very expensive. One has the Washington Post. How long it took them for 2 reporters to come out with Watergate stories, doing nothing for almost 2 years. Can you afford that?
All right.
So we'll get there, certainly.
We would like to thank you, especially Ambassador Dr. Yemi Farounbi, OHIOLEI, for your presence in our studios this morning, and for your take, your submissions, and your wise words this morning. Thank you for all you are to us in the media space and to our country, Nigeria, because we know how much you've put into the country, and you'd be 80 come October 1, and this is us saying happy birthday in advance.
Thank you so much. I must end this way. Never give up on Nigeria. Nigeria is going to achieve its dream. We're in the process. We have not reached the destination, but we are certainly on the road. We'll get there.
All right, Ambassador Farounbi is an elder statesman and former Nigerian ambassador to the Philippines. It's been a great time with him in the studios this morning. We go for this break. When we come back, we'll return to Edo State to have more conversations with especially a stakeholder in that part of the country. Do not go anywhere. Morning Spring, we'll be right back.